Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 496. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am one of your podcasts, Todd Oxtra, also known as the terrifying Todd. I'm joined by the chilling Charlie Carden as he has relived his high school youth for the last week.
I'm going to say that those nicknames were not workshopped, and my lawyers will be in touch. I'm doing great. Here's your real choice in 2024. I saw the shirt about a week ago and had to pick it up. So if you're not watching us on YouTube, you're missing out because snap your fingers. I'm good.
And Charlie,
I'm back,
you know, there's a good choice of you being one of the snappies. So
50-50. But you know what? If I'm lucky, it's my next door neighbors. Wouldn't miss them.
No, you're left with the only people that annoy you. Your list is the only people that are left, Charlie. Sorry.
Spoiler alert, I gave him the list. He's going to hook me up. I'm not going to tell you how I got the hookup.
I don't think he has control. I think it's just random. Sorry, Charlie.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't know.
No.
I feel like there's a little bit more to it. But I digest. Yes, had my 30th high school reunion big party last night, which I didn't think I would enjoy so much, but I had a good time. It was actually good to see some folks, and I'm old now. Todd, I know you living out of state. You've not made one of those probably. And have you ever been to one? Never? Not a one? Not even back. Yeah.
Everybody I want to talk to, I can, and everybody else is on Facebook, so I know exactly what's going on. Like, so I don't know what the point is anymore.
Facebook. Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? You either dig it or you don't. But anyway, had a good time. And while we're yickety yakking, I believe we had. Can you think of a nickname for our special guest? Because I'm sure he's on the edge of his seat.
Oh, yes, I can. So our special guest this week is a good friend, Jose Martinez, a.k.a. ChipotleBear, from the Nerd Chat. So I'm going to say the Mauler, Jose Martinez. Jose the Mauler.
I'll take it. That's very strong.
Maller, like Chopping Mall, another horror movie.
No, like a mall, Mauler.
Like
mall people.
Like the Cocaine Bear. Got it. Very good.
Yes. The cocaine or the ChipotleBear, mauling others. Well, very good. Thank you, Jose, for joining us. Before we get into this, we need your geek origin story, how you became the geek you are.
Well, thank you both, first of all, for having me, Charlie, Todd. Pleasure to be here. I've known Todd for quite some time, been on co-op mode with him and Mark, and now getting to meet Charlie for the first time, even though I've listened to the show for quite some time. So I'm happy to be here to represent myself as well as the Nerd Chat. My geek origin story, I'll be honest with you, is very old. And I mean by that is like, I've always lived in a community of friends and family that have always supported my geekdom. Like they never made fun of me for it. I was never shunned for it. And so it's just always been part of who I am. I would say the earliest pieces of it were probably related to like the Marvel universe. As a kid, I was always just very intrigued by art and I loved the covers of comic books. And so I didn't necessarily buy a lot of them, but not because I didn't want to or anything. It was mostly just because I kind of didn't know where to start. And I have my own personality issues of like being a completionist on some things, and so it's like it's hard for me to start something if I don't know how I can finish it.
Yeah.
Even now, I take my daughters to the library all the time, and I love walking by the graphic novel section. And I want to take so many, but I'm like, I need like a guide, like I need like a docent to be able to be like, start here and then read these 3 and then these 7 and stuff. So that was probably where it kind of initially started. But even from an early age, was also into like video games. My first system was the Super Nintendo that I got when I was 7 years old for Christmas. Super big fan of like the Ninja Turtles, and my mother, who I love very much and who always supported me in my geekdom, like tells the story of when I was a kid, when the initial run of the toys came out, that she was like in Toys R Us shoving other moms. So that she could
like the Cabbage Patch doll.
I mean, truly, like the scenes you see in like Jingle All the Way and stuff. She was like, no, I was definitely there, like pushing people out, because I didn't know this. And I mean, I certainly wouldn't as a kid, but she wanted me to have the complete first set, like when they came out, which like, that's amazing. Wow. I have a mom there. And she found out that the Rat King, which was one of the figures in the set, there was only one in every box. That
the chase figure in a wave. Yeah, that's exactly. It's still a thing.
How could the Rat King not been more popular?
And well, you think it'd be like
Well,
Shredder or something like
rats.
that, too, right?
Was he like the Rat King like from SNL where it was 500 rats in a trench coat? I can't remember what the character was.
No, he was
like.
the one that he kind of looked like a mummy. Like he was brown and green and had
bandages.
Yes. But anyway, so since then, have definitely, when I got a little older, because neither of my parents were really into like geek stuff, and I have a younger brother who kind of followed my path a tiny bit, but not really. So it was really kind of all self-involved. Got into like Star Wars, and then really just everything now. And now, as I've grown up and obviously have like a career and stuff, I feel like I can enjoy a lot of stuff that I didn't when I was younger, and of course pass it on to my own children. And so that's kind of been my journey for the last couple of years is doing this kind of stuff. Podcasting has been great to kind of relive a lot of this stuff, but also to share it with my family and stuff. So that's kind of my origin story.
I love it. Good stuff. Well, it's good to have you here, and many happy returns. Boy, do we have a special movie to talk about for week.
Yes,
4.
we do. And Jose said, so Jose actually requested, can I be on for Return of the Living Dead? So he knew what he was getting into it. Unless he didn't know, and he's like, that sounds cool.
Yeah, and I will tell you, this was one of my picks. I missed last week's. Which was that another Heritage movie? I didn't end up listening to the episode because
it was a 78, the Fury, Charlie. It was you should watch it just because it's so ridiculous. It's another ridiculous horror film from the 70s.
Yeah, we have been on a streak, and I know we're finishing next week with like a serious new release horror film. So that'll be interesting. So a lot of schlock and then a very serious movie next week. But anyway, not to put the cart before the horse, before we get into talking about that and great news from New York Comic Con, which is wrapping up today as we're recording, we, as always, love to pay homage to the wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon. Love these people over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Exclusive content, early shows with no ads. And it's for as little as $2 a month. And that's after you spend a week with us for free. Free 7-day trial over there at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Great folks like my pal Derek Trevelyan, the figure dude, Francie, who's my wife's hairdresser, our good buddy Luke Lore, aka Xbox Expansion Pass, and my awesome uncle Tim Horan. Very grateful for those folks. Also on our Friends with Benefits level, John Sdorf, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, Kelly and Crayley, lovely ladies, Brendan Myers, Corey in HD, and Matthew Keel, and last but not least, the cornerstone of it all, and also Patreon contributor, you and Todd, you and Mr. Nice do a program together that's been coming out. The Nice family over there in the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry, we are grateful for all of you. And again, Todd, you're going to walk me right into this next section. I'm going blind, but that's okay. I can vamp for a little while. But anyway, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. And try us out for 7 days. I think that you'll like what you see, and you might want to stick around. And apparently we are skipping our next section. Todd,
no, we are not. I've been saved by the bell, Charlie.
You've been shaved by the bell. I don't know how that works.
I did shave. So saved by the bell. I did notice that we were missing somehow a cover this week. So, I'm really fast.
You go ahead. You obviously, is key deal. Please.
So we got this covered this week. DC Comics. This is from June of 1965. This is one of their romance comics. 12 cents got you this amazing comic. It says, what strange spell had Lila cast over the one I loved? What mysterious hold gave her the power to turn him into an obedient puppet? And then we see a man at the bottom. It says, I do love you, Benny, but I can't stay away from Lila. And then we get a picture of Lila as the puppetress, as she's basically controlling the strings.
I got it figured out. There's only one person who this can be. The purple suit is the dead giveaway. That is Bruce Banner pre-Hulk. That's what I'm saying.
In a DC comic?
In a DC comic. Can you believe it? Synergy!
Wow, that's a twist.
I know.
And I will let you know, on the back cover, you could send away for more glamour wigs. So maybe I should look into that. $4.95, Jose,
now,
for a glamour wig.
It was 1965. So any Beetle wigs in there, or is the glamour wig just like one style?
Oh no, there's plenty. I can even put that in the chat so we can all see the wonder of these glamour wigs. So Jose, 1965. I don't know. Were your parents even alive in 1965? You're a little bit younger than I am.
They were 59 and 58 were my parents, so they were very young. They were like 6.
Okay, so this could have been your parents' first comic for all we know.
Okay.
Right.
A romance one.
Exactly. Yeah. It fell off. It was in the barber shop, because of the glamour wigs. The ladies would get their hair done on those big old like domes that would come down.
Right.
And then they would read a comic for the kids if they'd bring kids along. So in regards to the glamour wigs, there's 5 styles and 10 attractive colors. And I don't know if they have individual names. They have numbers, but no names. So, I mean, they're all a bit different.
Yeah, it's a mix and match. They do have 2, 4, 6. They have about 10 or 12 selections. The last one is black with gray streak. That's awesome. That'd be the one I'd pick.
Classy.
I'd like
that. So Jose, I don't know. You're a married man. You have kids, but I mean, have you ever thought that if you needed help with romance, that a comic would be the place you'd get it?
I learned a long time ago that their advice comes in lots of different forms. As a very quick funny story. My babysitter growing up had a husband who wrote books that were kind of bizarre, like they were all very different. And one of them was The Art of Kissing. And so for our entire childhood, we had this book on the shelf called The Art of Kissing. And I was like, why do we have that? And they were always like, oh, it's Vicky's husband wrote it. We did it to support him. And I was like, that's weird.
How do you fill out a book? Was it like a novella, or was it a big like a? I
mean, it was it wasn't like a massively long book, but it was like several chapters long about like the art of dating and all kinds of stuff.
Oh gosh, it's a little more expansive than just kissing. Yeah, hopefully not with hand drawn illustrations. I hope not.
Surprisingly, I have a follow up to this observation that there was The Art of Kissing book. Was this really just a ploy because his husband was kissing a woman, like her husband was kissing a woman like out of the blue, and he's like, honey, I'm doing research, and then it turned into a full-blown book project.
As a cover just from that one.
I think they did divorce years later because of infidelity.
And then he wrote about the art of divorce, which trust me, it's not an art.
Or he's like, hint, honey, I wrote a book. Did you want to read it? That's not awesome. That's not great feedback to your spouse. I wrote a book about you to fix your problems. Would you like to read it?
Would you like the instruction?
I know how to fix all your problems. Yeah.
Jose, does that book still exist in your house? In your parents' house?
In my house. It might be at my parents' house. I'll have to look. We usually have on Sundays, so I'll be over there later. I'll see if it's over there. I'll let you know.
I think that goes. I think you should ask that for that to be like bequeathed to you.
Yes.
I will. If I find it, I'll send you a cover. I'll send you a picture.
Yes, please do. That sounds like a wonderful shareable. But so DC always blows my mind with all of these romance comics. And I know Marvel did some as well, but DC is an older company. They've been publishing longer. So I assume then, they did Superman's, girlfriend Lois Lane and his, blah, blah, blah. And Millie the Model was the Marvel equivalent, wasn't it? Wasn't that the big one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think there was another one too.
Patsy Walker.
Yeah.
Patsy before
Patsy
she was
Walker.
Yeah. But obviously, again, like anything at all, if nobody was buying them, they would have died a quick death. But because they were around for decades, somebody was digging them. It's weird. So anyway, well, you may not know this, and Todd, this might have skipped your mind when we first interviewed our senior news correspondent for her job, but this is what Madam Web used to do for a living. I think she started a few of these books, and we'll give Todd a chance.
I thought you were going to say wig model. Yeah,
I think she did that too. We'll give Todd a chance in the break here to come up with one of Madam Web's titles. But anyway, as I had mentioned, we have a wonderful news correspondent, Madam Web, at 124 years young. She's down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine with the latest scoops for us. Let's go check it out.
Now it's time for Madam Web's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Web. Yes, Charlie was kind of spilling tea on your old job. You were the romance consultant for DC's comic line. You would point out all the things that were wrong with their approach to romance. You were like, nope, women have to manipulate, men have to cheat, because that's my experience, and that's how you make it realistic. And you leave all of these readers coming back for more because they've been disappointed.
That's what they want to read about. It's the sizzle. Sell the sizzle, not the steak.
If they're happy, they're not going to read a romance comic. So you got to make them unhappy.
Yeah. Wow. That is marketing 101. All right. Well, New York Comic Con comprises a lot of what we're going to talk about here, but we had a couple of great trailers. Todd, up first, and I know you love monkeys. So what do we got going on here with this Stephen King classic?
Yeah, so Osgood Perkins, the director of Longlegs, which we truly enjoyed, which was just a freakazoid movie.
So much. Yeah, so crazy.
Yep. So he is directing this adaptation of the short story, The Monkey. And that was, I think, is part of like a story collection. Was it?
Oh, like the novella, like the body was a novella that became Stand By Me. It's like
there's a collection. It's called like 12 Hours to Midnight or something like that. Can't remember what it is, but. This story, this trailer, I don't know. Hopefully, everybody got a chance to watch it because I like the tone. It's really off kiltering. It's like it's comedic at points and it is horrific at points.
Yeah,
and essentially, this is where it is. So it's produced by James Wan too, but Theo James from the White Lotus plays a man whose family has been terrorized by a malevolent monkey doll. Every time the mysterious doll clashes its symbols, someone dies, and according to the poster for the film, everyone dies. And that's blanked up. Here's the first teaser for the movie.
Yeah. Oh my God. So some of the deaths we did see. Now I thought I caught Tatiana Maslany in there. Is she part of the cast, or maybe just in passing? Because it was a lot of.
She is in it. Christian Convey from Sweet Tooth, Tatiana Maslany from She-Hulk, Elijah Wood is in this, Colin O'Brien from Wonka, Rowan Campbell from Halloween Ends, and Sarah Levy was the woman that was closing like the cabinet with a monkey in it, which is kind of cool, from Schitt's Creek.
Oh, very nice. Oh. So we saw a lot of random deaths. There's a guy who's running, but his head is engulfed in flames. This one hit a little close to home. I was at a Hitachi restaurant in Wisconsin.
Hitachi?
Yeah, Hitachi.
Hibachi.
Yes. That would be hibachi. You see, there's something wrong with your ears. Earlier this week when I was
you said Hitachi, the TV company,
and there was a Hitachi on in the background. See, yes, I'm doing the weave right now. I'm going to bring it all back together.
Bringing it back.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yes, you see that in the course of this, a knife goes awry, and you see somebody's throat gets cut. There's like a lot of bad stuff, and this was only a minute 30 trailer. So this is coming out in, did I see February?
February 21st.
Oh, right in time for my birthday. I love it. Happy birthday to me.
Yep. The great part too is the song for this was "Let the Good Times Roll." It's an old classic, which is great because it's like, oh my God, you're seeing all this craziness plus the tone. So, Jose, I'm not sure if you're a Stephen King fan, but this is like the classic monkey paw thing. I dug this. What'd you think?
I mean, I'm a big horror fan in general. Like, that's why I was thrilled to be here with you guys today about this. But you know what one of my biggest shames is? I've only read exactly one Stephen King book. I've seen almost all of his movies, but the only book I read was The Eyes of the Dragon, which is one that most people have literally never heard about.
Doesn't even ring a bell. No, my wife is a massive fan, but we're real bad at reading books. She read them all when she was a teen, a preteen. But yeah, every time we pick up a new book, it's like I'm on the screeners reviewers list at Simon & Schuster, so I get these Star Trek books. And I'm really just trying to make time to read, because there's going to be good, there's going to be bad, but I will read a bit of it, and I want to make I want to feel like they're getting a good investment in me, that I'm delivering the goods. But it's tough to find time to read. Todd, I know you're a read and fall asleep kind of guy yourself.
Yes, the last book I really got into because I wanted to do it was Halloween. It was this not Darkness Falls, but it was a cool Halloween book. But yes, it was short, and it was great because the chapters were short too. Because I'm like, well, if I'm getting sleepy, at least I can commit to a chapter a night before I go to sleep. Probably shouldn't read at night. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe I shouldn't read at night. Maybe I should read like sitting up on a chair. Like maybe that's the situation. Reclining is death. But Jose, what was the book that you read from Stephen King?
It's called The Eyes of the Dragon. It's like a medieval.
Oh, it's more fantasy, right?
It is, and it's very bizarre, and it was definitely not appropriate to read when I was like 9 years old, which is when I read it.
Oh, geez, no, I don't think so.
But nonetheless, I've always
sexy fantasy.
There's definitely a couple. There's some words that stick out of my mind, even in today's life.
Okay.
I thought this trailer looked awesome, man. Like I'm especially after seeing Longlegs, and like Nicolas Cage, fantastic in Longlegs, and like it was a creepy story. I was like, I'm in. Totally. Like I can't wait for February. It's right around my wife's birthday, which I don't think she's gonna want to go for her birthday, but we'll find some time in there to go see this. So I think it looks great.
Todd, I remember, speaking of that time frame, it was 2 years ago, because April and I were on the first of the two Star Trek cruises we did, that the Cocaine Bear came out. So I guess the third week in February is a great time to crank out like a really horrific movie like this. So I'm down.
Viral or something that'll get an audience in. It's a dead time, yeah. Because I mean, you got Valentine's Day. That's one week, but the week after Valentine's Day, maybe you've got to promise that if you do something romantic for the spouse, they will go to this crazy movie with you, and you're.
The quid pro quo, absolutely. Well, cool. No, I'm looking forward to this. So, okay, so the Russo brothers are in bed with the Netflix people because who hasn't been? And they produced, was it The Gray Man? Wasn't that was with Chris Evans? I think I saw that one. I don't think I remember.
Evans and who was the other? Was there another Chris in that? There was two.
No, it was a Fall Guy. Who's the Fall Guy? Ryan Gosling was the other one.
Yeah.
Was
okay,
he?
not one of the other Chris's.
Not one of the. Okay. No, I didn't. I wasn't crazy about it. I don't know if anyone else thought it was great, but anyway, they're back. And again, the Russos are great. They gave us the best of the MCU, in my opinion. I mean, I love Infinity War and Endgame. But bring
Marvel
back
movies.
A familiar face. So you got, yeah. So yeah, they are good at Marvel, and they're coming back again. But yeah, their new project, which is coming out in March, so we're talking also a little bit further down the road, is called. This looks like adorable. It's called The Electric State. And we do have a Chris in this one. So Todd, that must be what you were thinking of. It's a Chris, but it's a different Chris. We got Mr. Pratt, Star-Lord, Star Prince, Star Munch, and somebody who's destined to end up in the MCU eventually, Millie Bobby Brown, who is now, she 20 or 21? I mean, it's funny because when we met her, Stranger Things was 10 years ago.
18 years ago when Stranger Things launched. It feels like it's been a billion years.
Yes, it does.
It feels like it's been at least 9 or 10 years since we met her, and she was 11 because she was number 11. But I feel like that's how old she was. That's how old they all were. But now she's probably grown.
She's 20 and married to Jake Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi's son, which is just crazy.
Right. How bizarre. But
Millie Bobby Bon Jovi. I love that name. I want that name.
MMBB, right? Millie Bobby
BJ.
Brown Bon Jovi. Bon
Jovi.
Bon Jovi's all one word because that's his legal name.
But not the band. I assume she just changed her name to the name of the band, though.
Why wouldn't
I think
you?
she did.
I think I'll marry Liv Tyler and change my name to Charlie Aerosmith. What do you think?
There you go.
Exactly. Todd, Insane Clown Posse. That's my last name now.
Oh my God! All right. You married I married for love. I married a Juggalo. The Todd Oxford story. Yeah. So anyway, direct to Netflix. This has to do with in a world where I could be that guy. In a world where the Earth is a robot covered wasteland. And the design of the robots in this looks is this come from a video game or something? Graphic novel. I'm sorry, it says
based on a graphic novel and by Simon Stollenhag. So not just a graphic novel.
Yeah, there's a name that rolls right off. So this takes place in an alternate 1990s. Everybody loves the 90s. That has survived a robot uprising that started when the animatronics developed by Disney for Disneyland. Well, that's a little bit of a poke because it's Netflix. And
specific. Wait, they even call out Disney? I didn't even realize that.
I'm reading what's right here in the article. Yes, absolutely. So yes, they rose up. They gained sentience, and they managed to, they managed to obviously push the robots off into wasteland, so they're in exile. But Brown plays Michelle, an orphan teenager who then hires a smuggler named Keats, who is Chris Pratt, to get her across the wasteland and find her brother. So it's an adventure tale. But look at this. The last title card on it was this cast. Kehu Kwan, Jason Alexander, Giancarlo Esposito, Stanley Tucci as Dr. Evil. Did you catch that? The jacket he was wearing? I was like, oh my goodness.
No, I didn't. Oh.
This says Woody Norman. I swear it said Woody Harrelson, but maybe that's what my brain wanted it to be in the title card. But yeah, and Alan Tudyk, Jenny Slate, Woody Harrelson, and Brian Cox voicing the robot. So there's two Woodies, but not the Woody from Toy Story. So
holy cow!
Looks like fun. My wife loves Netflix movies. I haven't seen a great one in a while. They're usually pretty bad, but this is obviously an epic. So hopefully, and it's written by McFeely and McManus, the guys who did Endgame. So Maybe
and
it'd be
Alan
great.
Silvestri is composing this, who also did the work on Endgame and Infinity War.
Yep. So based on that, if this isn't great, I'm going to be pissed because it should be, right? You know, robots, but it does. It has a cheeky tone, as you'll see. I think from that, like, you know, that last shot where one of the robots is carrying our two protagonists in a VW bus walking across, and they come upon a settlement that starts firing refrigerators at them in a catapult. I said to turn to April and I said, Indiana Jones might be in that one, but alas, he didn't fall out. And he falls down, and the robot who does that, a bong, gets hit by another one. It looks cute. It looks cute.
I think the animation looks great. Like the robots look like cartoonish, and Jose, feels like these look like robots out of like Cuphead, where they're just definitely like feel like
that was
vibe.
That's what I was thinking of. It looked very video gamey.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like we said, the Russo brothers outside of the Marvel films, their quality has been and maybe it's because they didn't have like Marvel like there to keep them reined in. Netflix probably said, "You got a free blank checkbook. We won't edit you. We won't constrain you. Just spend all this money." And that's not always the best situation. So maybe,
usually never.
I mean, it's got good talent here, and it's based on a graphic novel versus an original property. So this could be really cool. I like Millie Bobby Brown. She's great.
Big time.
Agreed.
Now that she's
did you see Damsel with her on Netflix, Todd?
I think
I did not, but I did see her in what was it, Nola Holmes, which I really liked.
I like that too. Yeah.
Damsel was fun. It wasn't amazing, but it was a fun like 90 minutes to meet something on in the background.
Yeah, she's got good stuff going on, and you know, there's still more Stranger Things out there, right? Didn't they shoot it like 8 years ago, the last season?
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming in 2025 finally. But yeah, I mean, the fact that she is 20 years old, I feel like she started. We saw her first one; she was like 11, which is just crazy.
Exactly. This is a very bizarre. So it looks like fun. All right, well, New York City Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, wrapping up as we're recording this on a Sunday, and there was a lot of stuff. Todd, give us a taste. What's going on in New York Comic-Con?
Oh my goodness! Well, Jose, hopefully you're locked in your chair. Your socks are firmly on, because this is kind of crazy. New York Comic-Con has really become like probably the second biggest show from like a big event announcement that's not like owned by like D23 or something like that.
Right.
So they really brought out the stars. We got like production companies are back again. So Marvel had a lot of appearance, but the big thing was they did have a panel for Daredevil Born Again. And the cool part is that they released, they have a release date now, which is amazing. And this is the series that's like 22 episodes on. Oh, wait, I'm wrong here. So they actually talk about this. So instead of 22, they filmed both seasons together, essentially cutting it in half. Because remember when they said like 22 episodes, I'm like, 22 episodes. Huge. That's ridiculous.
And they started shooting it, and it was right at this hinge point where Secret Invasion had come out. Marvel's the love for Marvel couldn't have been any lower. And I think Feige walked on the set of it and said, "Cut it off. We're starting over."
It's a reboot. They're rebooting it. Yeah.
They restarted this because we're like, it's not a good vibe. We don't like it. We're starting over. And they did. And now we're moving along to the point that, you know, you can see obviously in this image here, we've got John Bernthal back as the Punisher. I've now read that Luke Cage and Jessica Jones will be back in the second half or second season.
Really? They're going deep. They're really going deep. Okay.
Now I will preface that I will call it a rumor because I don't know that I've seen it around in a lot of places. So that is a rumor that they're looking to.
Is Iron Fist responsible for it, Charlie? He's like,
I hope not.
Bring me back, please. Bring me back.
God, he's such a low rent Tony Stark. He's like, oh, the Rand Corporation. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, March 4th, is that the date we got here?
March 4th. It's season 1 consists of 9 episodes. Season 2 already greenlit. So I'm guessing they just continued to film the 22, because that's what he said. There's going to be a 22 episode season. I'm like, nobody does 22 episode seasons.
Exactly.
So that's what they're doing.
Not for streaming.
They just turned it into seasons. Makes sense. Obviously, people are now conditioned to shorter seasons, and it gives them more content. They can break that, get their costs spread out over 2 seasons, which isn't a bad deal. I mean, it's not like this show will have a lot of CGI. Most of these players are of like, normal human abilities. I don't think
Right.
anyone announced the season will really truly be like a super powered individual. They will have elements of grounded abilities and things like that, maybe with a little like Matt Murdock has this thing. But I'm hearing about the villain is going to be a new character too that's being brought.
Okay.
I think his name was like Karma or something from the comics. I'd have to look it up, but basically it's
Boy
another
Boy
new
George, Karma,
Yes,
Chameleon.
yes.
All right, looking forward to
Born
it.
Again was a classic Daredevil series where after all the bad crap that happened to Matt Murdock, basically Karen basically sold him out for drugs and leaked his identity. Basically the
Kingpin beat him to death.
Yeah, it's all this bad thing. So it was about Matt Murdock coming back and, coming to light. And the bad part is, I hate to say this, I was not a big fan of how they handled Elektra with the Netflix series. So she was killed in the Defenders, I believe. Wasn't she?
I mean, I think so, because that's the character's classic arc. She comes on, she gets murdered, and then she comes back, which is what they did in
the Bullseye.
Yeah, they did. They did in the Ben Affleck kind of one and done in 2003. So I don't. I remember not much about those Netflix series at all. They're all over on Disney Plus now, so they all transitioned.
And Jose, I mean, what do you think about this? Were you fans of were you a fan of like the Netflix series that when they came out?
Oh, I was, absolutely. I loved Daredevil. Was awesome. Like that fight scene in the hallway was one of the best fight scenes early on in like the MCU, even though it wasn't technically MCU at that point. And I liked Luke Cage a lot. Jessica Jones, like I liked the character. I didn't think the show was like my favorite. And I really, really wanted to like Iron Fist. Like I was so excited to see like a true rendition, and it was just lacking a little bit.
It truly was not. Yeah. Especially since, Power Man and Iron Fist is such a core 80s and, a buddy duo drama, or a title that we had. So it sucked that they got it wrong. So, I
love Luke Cage just because I felt like it nailed like that aesthetic of like, urban, in their inner city culture really well with music and the characters. Marshala Ali, and then what's her name? Because
she was in Star Trek, and she was more recently in Alfre Woodard.
She was amazing in it. And then you brought in what's his name? Shades. Love that guy. He was just anytime he shows up, he's bad news. I just loved how they handled that.
Yeah, that was really well done. So, but again, those are all on Disney Plus now. So does that make them canon in some weird way? I'm just not exactly sure. So who's to say? Who is to say?
I will do a recap, or I'll do a what happened previously on season 2 and season 3 of Daredevil. Also do the same thing for Punisher, because I really wasn't a huge Punisher fan. So I'm going to watch those just to get prepared.
That's smart.
Well, and we'll talk about this off book, but we could do a little run up, maybe pick key episodes to watch and talk about them on the show in the Thunderdome. Who knows? Something to get the rest of everybody ready. But regardless, all right, I'm going to blast through this one right quick. It's a 1-2 punch about Star Trek, which of course we'll do a deeper dive when Peter and I record Code 47, which will be out next week. But there was a Star Trek panel. Star Trek's, their branding now is the Star Trek universe. They have an umbrella where they talk about all their shows. We've known about the TV movie of Section 31, which is bringing back Michelle Yeoh's character of the Mirror Universe version of Georgiou, which is her character from the first season of Star Trek Discovery. And this character also came from that season, but she ended up in our universe. And now she is still running with Section 31, which is the very shadowy underworld, deep cover Starfleet bit. And this will be a 2-hour film that we are getting on. It was great. I correctly guessed when we would be talking about this on the show. So this will be at the end of January, and it comes out on a Friday, which is weird. That was usually Star Trek drop dates are Thursday, or Thursday or Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to this. Todd, you're a Discovery fan, and I know you're a fan of her. So thoughts?
Cannot wait. So Jose, I will say, if are you a dabbling Star Trek fan, or is it not in your wheelhouse?
I am dabbling. My mom actually was a huge Star Trek fan. So like, cool. We're talking like Shatner Star Trek. So
TOS.
But as like secondary to that, it's always piqued interest. I mean, I was always a Star Wars fan over Star Trek, but it's not that it's not like I'm loyal to one and not to the other. It's more of it goes back to that completionist thing where I'm like I'm missing so much of the backstory that it's hard for me to find a
if and I'm not knocking on you, but people who call, because in my wife and I used to run a fan club chapter and we would work cons and stuff, and people will come up and say, well, I really like Star Trek, so I can't really like Star Wars. I just find that so maddening. The franchises are really, they got the word star in them. Exactly. That's kind of where the similarity ends. What space fantasy versus space fiction or military fiction. I don't know, but anyway, that's always a rub for me.
So I mean, if you have Paramount Plus, I don't know if you have it or not, but I'll tell you, if you do, there's a lot of great entry points right now. If you like a little more comedic, there's Lower Decks, which if you're a fan of the TNG and more that era, there'll be some touch points. If you're a fan of like just a new entry point, Strange New Worlds, it feels like TOS with really cool modern technology, really good storytelling, and it's like the beginning of Star Trek, so you don't have to feel like you have to do homework. Right. Discovery is a cool check-in point with a different type of cast, and then and they've gone through different eras, which is kind of cool. And then with this show, Section 31 is the fact they're doing a movie with essentially like Black Ops of Star Trek, which is pretty cool. Which is neat. Yeah, and then Starfleet. I mean, then Charlie's going to talk some other. So if you're curious, I mean, Charlie is your go-to guy for all things Star Trek. So if you have curiosity, he can definitely hook you up with like recommendations. But I think he hit it on the head. Strange New Worlds, which comes back in early 2025. That was another one of the bits, is that we got a extended clip from the first episode of the season, which was a cliffhanger that we saw in summer of last year. So because of the strike, we're now going to be 18 months out. But moving it forward, Todd had mentioned Star Trek Discovery. It takes place in two eras. It takes place in the kind of quasi-TOS area, and then it jumps forward into the distant future of the 32nd century. I get so mixed up. But anyway, it jumps 1,000 years forward at one point. And when Discovery wrapped up, the Federation had kind of rekindled, and Starfleet Academy had been closed for 1,000 years because Earth wasn't part of the Federation anymore. Well,
kids didn't want to go to class anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was
Jose. The kids, they didn't want to learn. They needed administrators to come in and reopen the academy.
It was space COVID. But this show, which we're going to get probably in 2026, they're telling us, this is always so crazy to me, has been greenlit for a second season, which is like, so here your second season in 2028. But the cast, it's got a cast of superstars. Holly Hunter, reoccurring villainous character played by Paul Giamatti, Robert Picardo, who played the Doctor on Star Trek Voyager, who I've met several times and is a hilarious guy, reprising that role because the Doctor was a hologram, so he'll be alive in 1,000 years. And then obviously a cast of young, fresh-faced cadets, young people. But they have added Tatiana Maslany, who we were already talking about earlier in the show.
Man, she's busy.
She's everywhere as a character in Jose, I'm loving your background because I was trying to figure out what's going on back there, and that you must be in your kitchen. But it's cool.
My bar actually is.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome! You just had the bar. So will the bartender?
Jose's wife shows up every once in a while to grab a beer or something. So
in this case, she looked like she was putting away the Bloody Mary mix. I don't know. That's cool. Absolutely. I like it. But anyway, I digress. Also, I think would be a great entry point when this show comes out because again, you're starting in a unestablished time period that what happened with Discovery may or may not play much of a role, though some Discovery both regular cast and recurring may show up in this. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Tatiana. We watched She-Hulk again recently. She's fantastic. I know some people really hate that show. I don't know why, because it was a blast. Tatiana also made the exceptional Orphan Black, which was a series on, I think, BBC, either BBC. Where did we watch it? It was on AMC. Because there was a spin-off series, which we watched. It was only 8 episodes called Echoes, which had Kristen Ritter in it. Getting very excited about it. Ended on a cliffhanger, and then it got canceled. So, but Tatiana Maslany didn't show up in that one, so I digress. But anyway, this is continuing to be produced, and they produced it in Toronto at Pinewood Studios, which their stage was redubbed the Star Trek Studio.
Do they do the derbies there?
Yes, absolutely. I think that'll probably be the
Cub Scout. That's a Cub Scout deep dive. Pinewood derbies.
Yeah, well, it's not that deep a dive, but yes, Cub Scouts is. So this was cool, and again, we did get that extended clip of the first episode of the third season of Strange New Worlds. We got another clip of Star Trek Lower Decks, which comes on this week. Comes out this Thursday. Todd, are you ready? Are you giving Lower Decks a try again?
I will try again. I'm going to watch it in a different setting. So Jose, this one's a little bit irrelevant. This is by the guys who made Rick and Morty. So the humor is a little. It's definitely jarring when you think of like Star Trek. You normally think of as like people are reserved, everyone's behaving, and this is more like Rick and Morty, where people are a little bit more callous, a lot less. Less filtered. For sure. They like to screw each other, or they like to do goofy things. So I'm going to try to live love again after I've watched more Rick and Morty and Solar Opposites. So maybe that's where I'm lacking at. But the other show that I think you might like because you have kids, and that is Prodigy, which is animated, and it's on Netflix. You could probably watch that with your kids and introduce them to Star Trek.
That's a fun one. It was produced over the last couple of years. They did 2 seasons. It was a victim of the strike in so much that CBS sold it off to because they wanted to diminish their own losses from what was going on. So Netflix picked it up, and then they published the second already completed season. So there are 40 episodes, 22-minute episodes over 2 seasons, and it's a great romp. It's a cousin series to Star Trek Voyager, so it continues the story of some characters there. So, all right, I've done a whole lot of talking. Todd, what else we got?
Okay, so it's amazing when Comic Cons actually deliver comic book news, and it did. So we're going to talk about a comic book that it came out. So it's interesting with there's a little, sometimes there is synergy with the MCU and Marvel Comics. Sometimes it's for a reason, sometimes it's not. But this is essentially looking to make Doctor Doom big in 2025. So the next big thing panel at Marvel, they typically do that, talking about like future storylines. They're going to be doing a 5-issue limited series called The Rise of Emperor Doom #1. It's got Ryan North, Fantastic Four writer, and then RB Silva is doing the art, which is pretty cool. And there has been an Emperor Doom before. It was like a one shot, I believe. It was like a novel.
I read it fairly recently because it was part of a compilation. That was a West Coast Avengers compilation. It was the late 80s. And it was Doom took over the Earth. He completely enslaved the population just using his mental powers. And then the event, I think Wonder Man he was like in a coma or something. He was in a coma or taking a nap or something. He woke up and he wasn't affected. So then he had to break the spell of certain other characters so they could go back and undo the whole thing. It was very comic-y. But it was, and Wonder Man is one of my favorite Marvel characters, so I really dug it.
Yeah, Doom is a very unique character because you think of only as a lot of people only think of as like a man of science where he does all this stuff, but he's also very mystical because of his mother and some of the things he's had team ups with Doctor Strange to basically bring back the soul of his mother from Hades, which is crazy. But essentially, this is dealing with the fact that he is now become the Sorcerer Supreme. So basically, he not only is Doctor Doom, but he's also got the powers of Doctor Strange. And then this will usher in a new status quo for the wider line of Marvel called One World Under Doom. And basically, after Doom has declared himself emperor, essentially, some heroes may align with him because, like, maybe he could do a better job than we're doing because, control, and others will not. And so this is the first time that Doom has been a central antagonist since 2015 Secret Wars as well. So that's something Marvel typically does. We'll basically, we're going to put you in the back burner because we've gotten a little too much of you as a threat, and we'll bring you back. It's like X-Men with Apocalypse or like Red Skull.
And at this rate, they roll them out once every 10 years because, this is 2025, 2015.
Got a lot.
Secret Wars, So get ready for his next great appearance in 2035 in something. Just good timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Marvel is building on its Ultimate line, which is funny because you think of like, oh, this is the second attempt at the Marvel Universe. Right. And they've already launched that. It's kind of an interesting take, once again, on the Marvel Ultimate Universe. And they do have an X-Men book. They have a Black Panther book, Spider-Man book.
Yep.
X-Men. Is there another one? Fourth one? X-Men?
X-Men. Yeah, I think that's
X-Men Avengers? Is there an Avengers book? No. X-Men, Spider-Man.
And their Avengers one was always
Black
just called
Panther.
The Ultimate, so maybe it's just the Ultimate Ultimates, something like that.
Yeah. So So now we're getting a new comic called basically Wolverine is going to be introduced, and it's in a Ultimate Universe 1 year in one shot.
So basically, we're going to have Wolverine show up, his character, what's different about him. And if you see the comic illustration, it's pretty cool. It kind of looks like a starfish on his uniform, but it's got a full face cover. It looks cool. Black and red is a cool mixture. Yeah. And then
it's very different. And in a character that is celebrating his 50th anniversary, it can't just all be yellow and blue. You know what I mean? You gotta mix it up. So that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we had the black and brown. Now we got this, and there was a black and white version too, with X-Force. And then apparently we're getting another new character. Power Man Timeless is coming for 2025. Yeah. Nice. 5-issue spinoff from last year's Timeless one-shot. Luke Cage from the future travels to the present to deal with a new threat. That's a new take on Luke Cage. Luke Cage has not been a time traveler. That is really interesting.
He's just usually beating up hoodlums and saying "Sweet Christmas." He doesn't get into the time travel and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So these are kind of interesting entry points for. I always think the limited series, the new series are always a good entry point for a lot of people.
I'm a big fan of the 5-issue limited series because Todd and I read them on a Patreon that we do called Spinner Rack, and it's great because you can chew on. You have a smaller investment in time. You're starting from a very good spot where you're like, what the hell's going on? It's all very very quantifiable, and if that series is successful, they move on and do another one. But it's not like, Marvel just launches a series out of nowhere and it drags along for 7 or 10 or 14 issues and then it gets canned and you're just bummed because they overestimated the audience. So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yep. So Jose, if you, like you said, you were talking about struggling to find like the entry points. Obviously we can, I'd say watch Spinner Rack if you want. That's a great way because we cover essentially like storylines, which is great from different books. But I think another way that makes it affordable for you just to try something to see if you like it is either Marvel Unlimited, DC Infinite, or Comixology Unlimited. Comixology Unlimited is actually probally the best entry point because it gives you DC, broad, Marvel, and then Image and other titles. So you can get like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You can get a lot of different books. And it's also for your kids. So if you have it, if you subscribe to it, it's $6 a month. Your kids can also read it on like their Kindles and things like that because it's through Amazon.
Sweet, so awesome. And it's just called Comixology Unlimited in name only. It's just Kindle because they had an app, the app got bought and then they just kind of dissolved it down into their own thing. Whatever. Who cares?
Good to know.
So. And then typically it's not always new books, but I will say this: you can also buy comics through Kindle, and if you have Comixology Unlimited, you save 10% too, which is a very nice opportunity to not have to feel like you're spending all that money. So if you're interested, let us know if you have questions. But I don't know if any of these are interesting to you, especially as Doctor Doom is going to be a big part of the MCU, and maybe not knowing a lot about him. Maybe this is an entry point.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to know where the Fantastic Four have been up to. Like, I know obviously like the classic historical stuff. I do the first series of like the movies and stuff. So definitely intrigued by the Doctor Doom story that's coming up for sure.
Yeah, good deal. And Todd, this next one's all for you because you're the DC Vertigo dude. But Vertigo was an imprint from back in the 90s, wasn't a little edgier, if I'm remembering correctly, from DC Comics.
So there's two parts to this story. Basically, DC Comics, Vertigo Comics is coming back, which is great. Vertigo is essentially the mature line of titles, not just from like sex and violence, but also like they were telling very, a lot of times difficult to get into type of stories where it was like more advanced. Think of like, going from like reading a pulp novel to like, oh, here's literature. So it's kind of like elevating writers to cover different things. This is where Sandman came from, Neil Gaiman. This is where Grant Morrison, Neil Gaiman. I'm trying to think of some other big writers that came in and reinvented like Swamp Thing.
Yeah. Didn't Watchmen come from this, or was that earlier?
No. But I would say Watchmen was probably a precursor to Vertigo, because it basically said we can tell very mature storylines, but having them against DC makes it a little bit harder for like kids to understand what's for parents especially too. So they said, let's just make a line for like books that are a little bit more mature for as our growing audience is growing up. We want to tell more detailed storytelling, more things. So that's where Vertigo came out of. It was a really good imprint. They had their own editorial. They took chances and they were all mature books. And It had been around for obviously decades, and that's where Preacher also came out of that line of books. Just a great line of great imaginative news stories. Unfortunately, DC has been through some hiccups through their management. Now Jim Lee is head of DC Comics. I think he feels like there's an opportunity to now bring back Vertigo and tell mature storytelling. They have been using the Black Label line, which I don't think has worked, because it's been like, oh, we're going to make like huge magazine size comics. We're going to do like things, and nobody truly knew what the Black Line label truly was. So I think bringing back to Vertigo to tell those type of stories and potentially incorporate like Batman into it, because previously Vertigo, you might get Batman in a book, but it was not like a core thing, or it was very weird. So maybe they'll allow Batman to have Vertigo stories going forward, because that would be really interesting.
That'd be
the
awesome.
Swamp Thing became a Vertigo book when he was a DC core character.
Batman after dark, the after party with Batman. Yeah,
Super
I like
dark.
it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then one of the new books is going to be The Nice House by the Sea. This is kind of like a horror book by James Tynion. So that's going to be the first ones under the Vertigo label. And another spinoff we're getting, which is pretty funny, Peacemaker presents the Vigilante Eagly double feature. So if you are a fan of Peacemaker, the current take of the TV series that it's only been out for one season, but no one's coming back. This is actually being overseen by James Gunn, because he owns those characters. He made them come to life. So that's going to come in as well. That's going to be very adult, 5-issue limited series. I love this. We're also getting DC Monsterverse crossover. So we're essentially going to have Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2. So essentially Justice League versus the Monsterverse. I love this. Jose, you smiled when I said that. What do you think?
That's fantastic, man. I admire what they've been doing with the Monsterverse, between all like the show and all the movies and everything, and finally a through line of stories that are kind of akin to what we got in like the 70s and 80s of Godzilla, where there were just so many, and then we tried a couple iterations, and now we're back. So this is awesome, man. And Justice League versus them, like, I just want to see how that story comes together. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. That sounds fun. We get kind of hard to work it into something canonical, but it's like, who cares? I like the throwaway element of it is what makes it fun to read.
Just have fun.
I think we're all just waiting for King Kong to show up as a member of the Justice League. Why not?
You bet. Put him in a Superman suit. Good stuff. All right. Well,
I've got one more story that's really important, because this is a big one. We're getting a Hush Volume 2. So essentially, sequel to Hush original series. Jim Lee and Jeff Leb are returning. So the original creators of the comic. This really made Batman shine when his take on those characters brought in Tommy Elliott, who is a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, and maybe was inspired by the Rat King, Jose, because he was also wrapped in bandages.
There you go. Maybe it was the Rat King. It
was the Rat King all along.
And I'll tell you, if I've read that story, it's probably been 15 years, so I don't remember anything about it. I'd be willing to read that again, and we can talk about it on Spinner Rack. I'd be interested.
It was great. Yeah, Tommy Elliott was a great adversary to Bruce Wayne because of their complication in life, but he also was kind of like a genius, so he could manipulate certain characters. Like we saw like Superman being overtaken by green kryptonite. We had Poison Ivy being elevated. Yeah, great line, great Jim Lee art. So he's very excited about this.
He's kind of like a Batman-ish, like Lex Luthor. He's saying like the mastermind.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Yeah,
good deal. All right, well that's the wrap of what we've got for New York Comic Con. If we missed something, listeners, this is your chance. Hit us up on Threads at Secret Friends Unite. Or over on our Discord, let us know if there's something else that you want to talk about. Keep the conversation going. But that does take us out of the news. Todd, I've got to get out my phone, got to get out my Fuber app, my Feeble Uber app, because the Geek Easy awaits down in Scugtown, Nastyville. We got this gross cab pulling up. It looks like it's from the 70s, smoke belching out the back. It smells ungodly inside. That pine tree air freshener is not helping out. But he does have the AM radio at full blast. And as always, I hear this commercial.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
Welcome to the Geek Easy. This is the place we go to drink, geek out, and ultimately not get food poisoning. This week, Jose, what are you geeking out about in the world of nerd?
So as I was telling the fellas before we started the show, I just got back from Disney World with my family. We're big Halloween people. We've always wanted to be there for Halloween, and we got to finally do that last week. Even with all the hurricanes, thankfully it was a safe trip and everything. And so I didn't have a ton of time to like watch and read because we were out obviously doing Disney stuff. But we as a family have made a really concerted effort to try to read a lot in the last like year or two because our daughters, they're 7 and 9, are learning how to read. And so we're trying to develop that love of reading early. And my wife, the one that you saw in the background a minute ago, they came back because they were at the library today getting books for the week and stuff. So we've been trying to read a lot. I like to read a lot of horror because that's just the genre that I enjoy, in addition to like comics. And so I've been reading, I finished a book by Riley Sager. He's like a horror author. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but it was called Middle of the Night. Basically like a friend is camping out with his best friend and he wakes up in the morning and his best friend has disappeared. And then it fast forwards into the future. And the question is whether the friend died when he was a kid or if something else happened, and very esoteric and stuff, but it was very, very good. Riley Sager is one of my favorite authors. So I finished reading that. And then in terms of watching, thanks to Bacon, my co-host on the Nerd Chat, he recommended The Penguin. I'm a couple episodes behind, but we watched the first two.
I am too.
No spoilers here, but man, I watched it on the plane because it was like perfect to watch it at night and stuff.
They have it on the plane, or did you download it?
You probably had it on your iPad, yeah. So
on my iPad, but fantastic, man! Like wow, like it actually made me want to go back and rewatch the movie. So I downloaded 3 episodes. Got back to Denver and I was like, I got to watch this movie again because I just want to make sure I'm not missing.
I know. I feel like I should do the same because that was very famously, Todd and I always quip about this movie. We both had bad experiences when we went to go see it. He saw it in the worst theater in the world. I saw it on a Friday night after a long trip and I slept through a good portion of it because I was exhausted from the week. So yeah, I feel like, Todd, that would be a good one to for us to watch and talk about again at some point. Maybe the next time something big Batman comes out, we can cover that one again.
I think so, yeah, because we're hearing rumors about the Batman 2 and who potentially will be like the villain for that and when it's going to come back. But I think it's really cool, Jose, that the series, the fact that it is launched right after the Batman.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. And I've only watched one episode, but has there been any other mention of the Batman except for he's on TV or
I think there was in the second episode because that's what we've seen. I think his name gets dropped.
I mean, it's very loosely mentioned. Like it's obvious it is literally the same universe. Like it very clearly takes
like
place
the same week, you know.
Yeah, it's literally days after the movie ends. So it's literally right there. But it is also pretty self-focused, which I really like. Like not that I don't want it to tie to Batman, and I'm guessing that as we get to the end of the season, there'll be a lot more tie-ins because I think it's going to lead into the next movie. But it's very good, dude. And like the villain, I don't want to get into that too much because that's a little bit of a spoiler. So good. Like I just finished episode 4 and our friend Chris from 1H1D, he was like, dude, as soon as you finish it, message me. And It's fantastic, dude. But it's also like great acting. Like it's very believable, and you're like really feeling for the characters. So highly recommend if you're a fan at all of the Batman, or if you haven't seen it all, check it out on HBO. Absolutely great. The other thing, real quick, that I was watching was a horror movie from a Spanish director called Terrified that came out in 2017. I had never heard of it, but my coworker, who's a big fan of horror, she gave me her Shudder account, so I've been watching it on Shudder there.
Okay,
and it was scary. Like I love horror movies, but I don't usually see ones that kind of like freak me out. I just something I have on, but this one I like finished and I was like, I feel uncomfortable because it was very, very creepy. So if you like really scary stuff, it's called Terrified 2017, and the director is Demian Rugna, Rugna.
Oh, okay.
But very, very good, man. Worth it especially for a spooky season. A good one to check out. So that's what I've been up to in the meantime.
Good deal.
That's an unfortunate name now that the Terrifier is getting all this publicity.
Right.
So people are like SEO, like Terrified, and it just takes you to Terrifier.
Oh, yeah. That's what everyone says when it's like Terrified. They're like, oh, Terrifier. I'm like, no, that's great too.
The
I like
Terrifier people are very happy about that.
But this is totally different.
The one I watched didn't have a clown in it. What are you talking about? Where's the clown?
Yeah,
Jose, right. Be careful. Maybe there's a clown in Terrified as well as Terrifier.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. It's funny, the fact that How I Met Your Mother, we don't find out actually that the mother was a crime boss before Ted met her. So that's like the big
she was an Arkham
loop together. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm undercover, and she actually didn't die of cancer. She died because of a mob hit. So there you go. I brought it full circle. It makes that show so much deeper. You look for the deep cuts. Right. Oh, look, there's a hitman in the corner.
Digging deep. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
So that's my conspiracy theory. I'm going to see if I can make that happen. Oh, well. Last episode, I talked about finally seeing Smile 1.
Yes.
Which, Charlie, I know you've seen.
Yes.
Jose, have you seen Smile?
I have. It's been a long time. And it was one of those where like, I think I fell asleep through part of it just because I was watching a bunch of stuff. I do want to go back and watch it with the sequel coming out. So
Yeah, same.
Well, that was my motivation to see Smile 1 last week. So I saw Smile 2 on Friday, took a day off of work. And it's funny, Charlie, because we talked about Trap, and the Smile 2 also features a pop star protagonist, which is so funny. I never thought we'd have pop stars being part of like horror movies.
It's all because of Taylor. Yeah, we wanted to go see this one Thursday night, but it was playing at like 9, and it's a 2-hour movie. Like there'd be no way. And then we were tied up all weekend with stuff for the reunion. So I have not yet seen it. So yeah, keep it light.
This will be spoiler free, but I will say the cool part about this movie is you saw Smile 1, which is essentially Smile 1. I talked about it. It has a very unnerving ending is the best way to put it. Smile 1.
Right.
Smile 2 is opening. Let's just put it the way. It's opening 6 days after the last film. So it's a spot on, like very Penguin, fresh. Like it's right. Yeah. So if you know that, you know what's going to happen. So this movie opens up, has a fantastic opening. That's all I'll say. It's really, really good. And then it leers into a pop star kind of as being the main protagonist of this movie. And I loved it for what it is. But these movies, if you're anxious and you're feeling like you have issues with like feeling like you're going insane.
Yeah.
And not knowing what to trust. But I tell you, this movie does a great job of it. It's also, if you are paying attention to certain things, you'll be in on it, which is great. Because I'm like, okay, I know it's up because I noticed that. I don't know if other people are too. Yeah. So that was great. And then where this ends, there's no end credit for either of these movies. The director, which I love, he says, I'm letting the movie talk for itself. I don't want an end credit. I want you to not know what's coming next. I don't want to clue you, and I just want you to be left with, oh, what does this mean? Kind of like the first movie. What does that mean? And that's exactly what happened. But wow. It is really unnerving. I think they upped some of the horror elements in this, and just like it will definitely be prepared for it, but definitely go see if you can in the theater. It's really, really, really good. It's funny when I went to go check in, it was a Friday at 1 p.m. So of course, who's really going to be there except for and it was MEA weekend in Minnesota. We have this where basically it's an in-service for teachers for 2 days, but basically families decide, oh, I'll just take the whole week off. So it's become like this 5 weeks after school starts, it's a vacation. Minnesotans go to Florida.
weird.
Makes no sense.
Right.
So unless like people are going for MEA to watch a movie with their kids, no.
Yeah.
The one woman says, "Oh, you're the one seeing this movie." So I was the only one. The one I'm like, "Oh, I'm special.
I'm the number one special one." Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's cool.
Exactly. And it's funny when you do see a horror film at times, it's like, and you're kind of like not sure. I'm always like, okay, is there going to be someone in this movie that's going to try to kill me? Like, is it like, am I living in a horror film? Is there anybody behind me? So I checked it out. I saw no one at any time. So that was good. So I survived. And I have not smiled once on this podcast, so I won't infect anybody here. So I just want to put it that way. So yeah, check out Smile 2. It was a blast.
That's good stuff. Yeah, I think we have to go see Venom this week because we're talking about it next week.
Oh yeah,
Venom.
Yeah, so
Eminem says it.
Venom. All right, Todd, you got anything else? We good? We rolling on? I don't want to cut you off.
I'm sharing what you watched first. One of the episodes.
Very good. Well, I'm gonna. It was funny. I was away for half the week, and my stupid Roku didn't work on the hotel TV, so I didn't really watch anything while I was gone. But apparently, I've watched a lot of stuff since I've been back. So I'm going to do some quick bites. We talked about Hysteria, which is on Peacock, and we've watched. We've watched more than just the first couple of episodes, but we talked about it on our show several weeks ago. Cool, set in 1990, I'm thinking. So
1989, yeah, it's 1989. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's a popular bit where to set things now. So we've got, and it's set in, I love it. And of course, with me, I'm like, oh, they set it in a fake town in Michigan. Where is it? But it was great. The town is called Happy Hollow. And the establishing shot of Happy Hollow has a highway sign that says east to Detroit, I-94. So I'm like, and as they go through, they kind of make you think it's pretty much Ann Arbor, or it's very close to it. So it's in that kind of southeast middle quadrant of the lower part of the state. So that satisfied the geography.
It's in Heartland, Michigan, Charlie.
Heartland. It's in the bucket.
Heartland. We used to play Heartland. We always play Heartland in college football. Yeah, and this one is definitely the era of like Tipper Gore. Right. Advisory labels, Jose. This is like, it's loving it. But the cool part about this movie, it's got Julie Bowen from Modern Family as a mom. You've also got Bruce Campbell as the neighborhood cop. Yeah. Who's the dad, Charlie? He's a familiar actor too.
Familiar. The only other really big name is Anna Camp, who is in the Pitch Perfect movies, and she is the Bible thumper church lady.
Oh, yes. That's what this movie is. It's about satanic panic. There's a kids band, and essentially,
say it again.
Like D&D, when D&D was coming out, and everyone was afraid of that.
Kind of like that. This is more like satanic lyrics, and Ozzy Osbourne
playing the records backwards, and the devil messages in it. Yeah. Okay. So definitely late 80s. Yeah. But it's this trio of kids who are like, we have a band, but nobody's paying attention to us. And then they said, well, why don't we pretend that we worship the devil? And suddenly they're the biggest thing in town. But there's a kidnapping of another student, and this all came from the trailer. And the kid turns up murdered, and then it's what's going on.
There's a cult.
Yeah, there's a cult. So
there's also something else bigger going on in the background with Julie Bowen's dealing with too. So it's a fun. I think it's a good show. I've like
it's
a mix.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, a little bit of comedy, but definitely something darker. So, all 8 episodes dropped at once, so it's all on Peacock. So that is, I'm enjoying it, and I think we're up through 3 or 4. But then we get diverted because before that, also on Peacock, is a series that again we talked about several weeks back, starring Yvonne Strahovski, exactly, who was in The Handmaid's Tale, one of my wife's favorite shows. She was last season at 24. She was a regular character. She was on Chuck. She's been around. She is a veterinarian, a large animal veterinarian, because she manages horses, who is married to a character played Scott Speedman. They don't have the greatest marriage in the whole wide world. And then they have a couple of kids. But late at night on their wooded property, there's a woman wandering around speaking in tongues. Don't really know what the heck's going on. The young boy, so their kids, a teenage girl and a preteen boy. He bumps into the lady in the woods, and whatever's going on with her gets transferred over to him. And they're off to the races. This is very visceral because, Todd, have you seen any of it? Did you watch the first episode?
I've seen a trailer from it, and I'm like,
Okay.
I've heard mixed bag. I've heard this show is kind of a mixed bag at best.
Well, and it's a weekly release, so they're up to 4
Okay.
episodes. I think
Okay.
4, and maybe or it doesn't really seem like it came out a month ago. But it's very visceral because whatever this alien influence is doing has drawn a ring around their property, and if you leave the property, like if you cross the blue line, something not so great happens to you. And I will leave it
Good.
there. Yeah, it's very visceral. So we were sucked in right away, and it's one of those like. This versus Hysteria, where they drop all the episodes so you can just keep cranking through them. But when something's a weekly release, it's like, it sucks when that's the way it always was, But we get so attuned from the opposite of it. So, yeah. So yeah, Todd, I would say tune in, But yeah, you said you've heard a little bit here, a little bit there. That
the reviews have been like it's basically doesn't deliver on all of the questions it answers.
Yeah,
or it asks.
Yeah. Well, the most recent, and again, because it's a weekly release, there might be more answers out there that we just haven't seen yet.
Sure.
I'm not sure. Super quickly, Todd, I know this will satisfy you. The last season of Young Sheldon finally came out on Maxx.
Oh, thank God. Our national emergency, Jose, has been answered because Charlie's been waiting for the end of season Sheldon, Young Sheldon, to finally drop series on streaming.
Yeah.
And it's happened. So, Jose,
glad to hear it.
You know what? Call off the cops.
Call off the National Guard. We're good.
We're good to go.
Yeah, 14 episodes, very short, probably because of the strike. The last 2 episodes, which I believe were aired the same day, is a heartbreaker. Because the series' purpose is fulfilled. His dad passes away. That's not a surprise, and it's handled in a very tough way. And the end of the series actually does have the return of the Sheldon we actually like, which is Jim Parsons, and then also Mayim Bialik as his wife Amy. Because Todd, you and I have talked about Ian Armitage, who was Young Sheldon. First 3 or 4 seasons, he was fun. Last 3 or 4 seasons, you don't want to watch him because he's obnoxious. You know what I mean?
Awkward teenagers. Nobody wants that.
Exactly. Because it was Ian Armitage trying to act like Jim Parsons, and he was just, I'm sorry, he wasn't pulling it off. Was not pulling it off. So, and then we started just today. Superman and Lois is back. I believe it's the final season. You can watch that on the CW app. They are tackling the death of Superman. They added a wrinkle to it, which I did not see coming. And we were like 10 minutes.
It was actually the death of Lois, not Superman.
Well, Lois has been dying throughout the show. Todd, I don't know if you follow it, but she's struggling with cancer.
Oh no!
And it's
kryptonite cancer.
Maybe I don't rightly recall, but this season is intense. They're tackling the death of Superman, which they set up in the finale of last season. So they have the Doomsday. They have Lex Luthor, who's played by Michael Cudlitz, who is from The Walking Dead.
He looks beard. That was an odd choice.
He looks like a crazy biker, and it's funny. Either this episode or the previous one, they showed a flashback of him from 20 years prior, and he has a much longer beard, but he has the big pompadour hairstyle. It was kind of crazy. Yeah, it was weird.
What's he going for?
I don't know. Todd, have you watched any of the show?
Is it like the Duck Dynasty executive look?
It's that hairstyle they call the Van Dyke. But Todd, have you seen any of the show? It's good. Tyler Hoechner is Superman.
I watched the first couple episodes of season 1. I'm like, this seems really good. It seems like a better CW show than we've gotten in a long time.
Yeah,
and
very true.
I just got removed from it. Yeah,
I would. So it's good. And like I said, they tackle the death of Superman, which has been done a lot, going obviously all the way back 30 years to when it happened in the comics. But they put a wrinkle in it that I don't believe has been done in other places. So I think.
Well, as long as Lex Luthor doesn't offer someone Skittles and puts it in their mouth, I'm good with that. Throwback. That would be the Michael or what's his name, Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah,
by the way, which Luke Lore loves, and I'm like, how do you like that casting? How do you like that story?
The Jesse Eisenberg one.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, you and I like the Man of Steel, but there wasn't any terrible casting of that. But the Eisenberg is Lex Luthor. Yuck. All right. So anyway,
sorry,
that's
Luke.
a little bit. We love you, Luke. We really do. That was Yeah, that was a lot for me. So sorry, but yeah, I watch a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. But anyway, that is the end of the Geek Easy. Time to skip out on the check yet again. I don't know why we come back here, but they always seem to let us in. But I've got out my Air Qantas app. Got to get that flight down to the land down under because Hologram Tina and the mutants are waiting for us. Week 4 of Shocktober with the classic Return of the Living Dead. Let's do it.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. The mutants been gathered for a topic or a game to be entertained. And this week, it's Shocktober, week 4. We are talking about 1985's Return of the Living Dead. This is by Dan O'Bannon, Orion Pictures, RIP, distributed this film.
No, wait, hold on just 1 second. Orion Pictures, much like I think Touchstone or how, like they're bringing the name back. So Orion Pictures is making movies again. It's being trotted out like that. But yes, it was one that died off back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know, Orion. We're glad to have you back because that's a very classic logo intro that we remember. It's got like the thing. So it's a touchstone to kids of a certain age. This was a budget of $3 to $4 million, $14 million box office. So pretty good for a low budget film. And this included some deep cuts with actors. Nothing you're going to really probably remember off the hand. Clu Gallagher playing Bert, James Karen playing Frank, Don Calfa playing Ernie, Tom Matthews playing Freddie, who was the hunk from Roseanne, if you remember that, Steve.
Roseanne, which one is it?
It's Roxanne. That was the Steve Martin movie.
Yes.
Beverly Randolph Tina, John Philbin as Chuck. A lot of unique like punks. But I would say the person that you're probably going to want to know who that is because of a certain scene is Linnea Quigley playing the character of Trash. Which, holy crumbs.
Let me interject, because Todd, we've been trying to cover movies that neither one of us has seen. I had seen maybe 2 or 3 super quick snippets from this film. A Halloween party, probably here in GR before I moved back, was with a friend at the party at their apartment. The TV was on. This was playing, and I saw that scene, and I was like, out of context. I saw the scene not when we first see her, but when we see when we first see her, and then when we see her later on, not to get into spoiling, and then the final shot of the film, if you catch my drift.
Yes. Yep. Trash is very iconic. She's seen many times in this film in many different ways. So that's all I will say.
Too shabby.
Yeah. So then basically the premise of this movie, when 2 bumbling employees at a medical supply warehouse accidentally release a deadly gas into the air, the vapors cause the dead to rise again as zombies. So I will say this, the precursor to this movie is also that the two of the main characters do talk about the fact that essentially Night of the Living Dead actually occurred.
Right. Yeah.
And
so this is a sequel of sorts. Right.
It kind of is because they acknowledge it. And then you find out that this medical warehouse happens to have the remains of the zombies from Night of the Living Dead. And why they could do that.
Accident. Right.
Yeah. The reason why they could do this. Night of the Living Dead is one of those movies where, quite honestly, nobody owns the rights. It's public domain. So anybody could take those things and use it as influence. That's why you can find it like for super cheap on DVD, all of these places. It plays everywhere because that first movie, while it's a classic, essentially was not distributed by or owned by a studio. So that's why that movie can be used for many, many things. So it's very cool. I don't know if the other movies are. I think the other movies are like trademarked. Yeah. But we go from there, like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and things like that.
Sure, and I'm sure this one is as well. So this came out roughly at the same time as the Day of the Dead. It was also mid '80s, but they're not connected. Yeah, they're not connected.
No, and just for everyone knows, I was reading there are actually 3. No, I was wrong. Actually, I thought there was 3 sequels. There are Return of the Living Dead Part 2 in 1988, Return of the Living Dead 3 in 1993, Return of the Living Dead Necropolis 2005. That's a huge gap. And then Return of the Living Dead Rave to the Grave in 2005. So like literally the same year. Got a rave movie, so in 2005. So
and that's perfect because we, as you said, we set the stage. It's a medical warehouse. There's a young kid who gets a job. He's working for James Cameron's character. James Cameron is an actor who's been in so much stuff from the 70s and 80s.
You recognize him.
Yeah, exactly. So James Cameron is walking this young kid around. That's Freddie, and saying, we have dogs cut in half, and that's one of our big for vet schools, and we have live cadavers here. Want to see one? It's in the basement. And so he takes this kid down to this basement, and they're real heavy-handed, like, watch the third step. It's tricky, so somebody's going to step on that third step and fall eventually. But he goes down there, and he's previously told the kid this story about basically, Night of the Living Dead happened. The whole thing was, you've heard the story, but it's not real. It was a gas leak or a chemical spill, and the bodies that got this spilled in, they put them in containers, and they were supposed to ship to a Army storage facility, which is here's a thought. Maybe the Army storage facility they were supposed to go to is what's in Day of the Dead, because in Day of the Dead, they're in a bunker, an Army bunker, attached to a cave underneath like an airstrip somewhere in Florida or whatever. So now I'm curious. But anyway, James Cameron's like, do you want to see him? It's like, I found a dead body down by the creek. Do you want to go poke a stick at it? It's just like, it's a bad setup. So they go down there and they're peeking at it and they're looking like, oh yeah, you see a, rotted face in there, and and the kid goes, "Are these things really safe to be around?" And James Cameron, what an idiot! Yeah, these things are rock solid. And he slaps the side of it, and rusted metal that's been sitting there for 15 years, side of it pops open, gas shooting everywhere. What happens then, Todd?
Oh, this is crazy. And Jose, I'm just trying to remember. You were excited about this movie. Have you seen it before?
I had seen it before.
Okay,
but actually, very similar to Charlie. So when I was younger. I mean, I want to say like teenager, to be fair, like 14 to 16, someone in there. I that was kind of my love for horror movies really started then. Like I remember my very first DVD was Deep Blue Sea about the smart sharks with
Samuel Jackson sudden.
Yeah, exactly. But I used to love horror movies. And so like even back then on like HBO and Cinemax and stuff during October, there were a lot of horror movies. And I remember like I saw Dawn of the Dead, loved it. And I was like, okay, there's another one like zombie movies. And so I was literally watching it with my mom, talking about my mom earlier.
Oh, yeah.
There's Linnea Quigley.
and she was like, what is this? And I was like, I don't know. And like just panicked and like we turned to something else. You know what I mean?
I don't know, but I'm in.
And so later on, years later, when I'm like now my own adult, I was like, I need to go back and watch this film. And part of what stirred me for it is that Tom Matthews also played Tommy Jarvis in, I think it was Friday the 13th Part 4. Tommy Jarvis. Guy who battles
that makes sense.
I'm a big fan of those movies, and so I was like, I got to go back and watch this. And there's a ton of really fantastic lore about the movie. But yes, I had seen it before finally. And Tarman is like the big the zombie with a name. That's the guy that was in the barrel that you.
He just knows
voice.
He just knows how to say brains. I do love how all these rotted zombies have completely intact eyeballs
and vocal cords,
and brains that work.
Speak. Yeah, and I would say that's the interesting part about this movie. It takes some definitely adds onto the mythos, does some different things. So it's like, oh, it's not exactly what you would think. But this movie, Dan O'Bannon, I mean, it was funny because I was looking up his like repertoire of movies that he's done. He has made some really crazy films. I mean, he made he actually did special effects in Star Wars, which is kind of crazy if you go back. The original. He did parts of special effects in Heavy Metal. He was a writer of Blue Thunder. He did everything on Return of the Living Dead. Charlie, he was the writer of Life Force. He was the writer of Invaders from Mars.
Because we get a zombie exactly the same, half a zombie, exactly the same as the psychic vampire when they're in their decomposition form, the one that they get the necessary exposition from. That's topless.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, he was the writer of Total Recall, which is just crazy too. So this dude has a lot. I mean, it was funny because look, if this was really his first big thing, which led him to do some of the other things that he did. But that was the last film he directed before there was a movie in 1991 he did called The Resurrected. But other than that, he did not direct any more other films. But he did write the story for Alien versus Predator. And he did write the reboot for Total Recall. So,
oh my goodness, this guy is all over. Yeah. All right, so back to the story. So James Cameron, he slaps the side of the thing, and what happens?
So so the zombie, well, this is what they call it. They call it trioxin. So that's the gas that bursts out of this holding cell, which I'm not sure if it's just keeping them animated so they don't come out, or it's the gas is what the zombies produce.
I think
from
that's
it.
it. That's what it seemed like. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but these two guys, they get dosed with this gas,
Knocks 'em
and
out.
we do see the zombie, which is Tarface, who basically, as it gets released, you see his face. Basically, the desiccated skin goes off, and you basically see like this corpse, which was kind of cool. Yep, and it's pretty interesting. So that kind of is where I believe this. And Jose, since you are kind of more of the expert in this, I think that's where it then leaves us, and then we see these guys kind of left behind, and then we're introduced to the punks, which are kind of a weird mix of weird punks.
I love the punks because all they want to do, you see the first scene, they have a car, but they're walking down the street in Anytime USA. We found it later it's Louisville, Kentucky. But all they're talking about is, I want to party. Let's find a place to party. We got to find a party. Oh, we got to wait till Freddie gets off work at 10 o'clock. And it was like,
Freddie knows where the party is.
Yeah, Freddie knows where to party. And it's crazy. But Jose, take us away. What's going on with those punks?
Well, what I always thought was funny, even when I was younger, was like, so Freddie's girlfriend, who's with the punks and very, very much accepted by them, is very not
straight.
Yeah. She's like straight laced, like probably got straight A's in school, probably got an essay written before she like came out for the night with her friends and stuff.
Right, doing her homework.
And so they're like, well, while we're waiting for him, let's go party in this cemetery. Like literally just like there's a cemetery. There's no one's going to bother us there. And it's a boarded up, or it's a padlocked cemetery with graffiti all over. So they're in a shitty part of town, but let's just wait in the cemetery. It'll be fine. Exactly. And so then it's kind of like reminiscent of like a campfire on the beach, right? Like, so there's like something to do, and they've kind of broken off into like pairs a little bit. And then Linnea Quigley, for whatever reason, Trash is just like, I'm going to start dancing naked in the cemetery. And everyone, instead of like appreciating it, actually is kind of annoyed by her. They're like, what are you doing?
Because she does it all.
Not this again.
Yeah, she does it all the time.
Yeah,
and even she kind of throws herself at the head punk guy he's the most of all of them. He's the one who's the most aggro. And what is he? Is he Skin or Scab or whatever? Let me Scuzz.
Scuzz. Was it Scuzz or was it Suicide? Because there was a couple. These are the names of them. So it was there was Spider, which was Miguel Nunez.
I recognize
him. Then we had Brian Peck as Scuzz. Then we had Mark Venturi as Suicide. And then, we just had like the preppy nerd guy, and then the girl that he liked but didn't like him.
Right.
And then, it was funny because the one guy who picked them up in the vehicle, he's like, you guys don't love me. You just want my car. And I'm like,
I know.
It's such an eclectic group of weirdos.
He is. Yeah. It's very passive aggressive. You couldn't really figure out how these people are going to. So they're hanging out back at the medical warehouse, which is again just across the street from the cemetery. The two guys wake up. They're not feeling great. They call the owner of the warehouse, who we met in the first scene. It's 4th of July weekend. So he's like, I'm off for the weekend. I'll see you at the barbecue tomorrow, whatever it is. And he comes back because they've wandered upstairs, and the gas, when they were knocked out, got sucked up in the ventilation system. So it was funny, the little board of butterflies that was hanging. I'm like, which they show at the very beginning. I'm like, that's 100% a setup. Something's going to happen with that, because the butterflies are flapping. The cut in half dog, they hear a dog barking and they run over and it's falling on the ground. They flip it over and see that it's
it's so sad.
I know, but then he beats it to death with a shovel or something. It's terrible. I know, it's not cool. But the real issue,
Frank was unhinged. Let me just put it this way. Frank was unhinged the whole time.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know what to do.
He was like Barney Fife. But the problem is they have a fresh cadaver hanging up from, I guess you hang cadavers.
Yellow man?
Yeah, by jamming them into sides. And it's a yellow cadaver, and it comes back to life, but it's naked, obviously, because why would it have clothes on? But yeah, when he comes back to life, he's just like, blah, blah, blah. They let him out of the thing, and he's jumping all around and rubbing his crotch on things, I guess. And so they try to they first try to kill him by putting a pickaxe through his head. Why do they have a pickaxe? I have no idea.
Because they acknowledge that, like, this is where it's great. Right? Like, the only way you can kill zombies is through their brain.
Right. So they're
like, okay,
a little bit of homework.
we're good to go, right? They all know what to do.
Right.
How does that work out, Jose?
No, not well.
No doubt. Yeah, because they try to give him a whack. He hits him in the head, doesn't stop him, cuts his head off, and then they later chop everything into bits and put it in plastic bags, kind of like what Rick Moranis did to Steve Martin's character in Little Shop of Horrors. Did to chop him up and throw him away. And they're like, well, we can't get rid of this stuff. But now the owner guy's there, and he's like, well, my buddy runs the crematorium, the funeral place. And it's weird. It's attached to the old funeral home, which is gated off. And so in a shitty part of town. So it's just that whole part of the setting doesn't make a lot of sense. But they're like, let's take all these back.
Is that uncommon though? Is that uncommon? Like, you do have like the funeral home also does like the mortuary services.
I know, but
so
it's on site at the cemetery. I guess I don't usually see that.
Charlie, you got manage your logistics. Why would you want to go really far away to dump the bodies?
It's a good footprint. So anyway, the mortician is over there, and that is actor, Don Calfa, who you see is everything. He's Ernie. And they pop over and they say, Ernie, we really need a favor, man. We set this gas off. It brought this cadaver back. We chopped it up, but we need to get rid of the evidence because otherwise we're going to be deep shit. It's going to be bad for me. They're like, all right, cool. They open up the furnace and they burn this up. Well, guess what? When they burn it up, to Todd's point, that's what the zombies produce. So that goes, this is great. That shoots out the furnace into the, somewhat, humid air of, Louisville, Kentucky, July 3rd, and it starts raining. Well, guess what happens when the zombie rain starts landing? It's a bad scenario.
Yep. I don't know, Jose, what does happen?
So it obviously infiltrates the ground, and so it starts turning, like, waking up all the dead underneath in the cemetery. They start coming back to life. There's a very, very famous scene that was also in the trailer of this, like, skeleton popping up from the ground, and again, like Charlie pointed out,
full eyeballs,
his eyes,
yeah, with the eyeballs, yeah,
intact. And there's also, you can see like a little a stick in his jaw, and he was talking about how he was actually really upset with that scene because it was so obvious that it was like fake and stuff, but he didn't have time to correct it and stuff, and so chaos ensues. And then also the punks who were in the cemetery get rained on, and so they don't necessarily know it yet, but it's burning their skin like acid rain, so they're trying to get out of the rain, and they like run back to the guy's car, but he's out of gas.
Right.
And so then they're like,
who can afford that 55 cents per gallon gas?
Exactly, from 1980.
Yeah. And so then they eventually get out of that, and they run into the warehouse, and they end up splitting up and stuff. And by that time, like, zombies are up and causing problems and attacking, and Linnea Quigley gets swarmed by like 10 of them at one point, and they just leave
which was her dream. Once again, Trash says, I just want to die, and I want to be bitten by old men. And
which was incredible, because if I can interject, she is obviously still naked at this point, although she does try to cover herself when she's running, but then ends up naked again. But when she gets bitten by 10, 20 corpses or whatever, she comes back. She has no bites on her. She's just bone white, and her face looks like a vampire or whatever, but still boobies hanging out. All
great hair. Great hair too.
Yeah. She has this very plastic Lego style magenta hairpiece. And I did read she does appear naked, but in the, crotchal area, it was a Ken and Barbie style codpiece. That was, that's why that's why it didn't look as you would expect it to look, regardless.
And I would say if you look back at like the movie poster for this, I don't know if that's specifically supposed to be her as one of like the zombie characters. Yeah, exactly. It's a great poster, which I love it too, because it's basically all in on punks, a little bit different. And so it's an interesting mix of also the zombies, because we get mixed into, like, we have some paramedics who show up. Right. And these zombies are very intelligent, which I was not expecting.
Regular speaking. I also find a little bit of a misnomer for me, again, and I'll refer back to the fact that this was in a bad part of town. It was padlocked. It looked like it was maybe abandoned. The stones were super close together. but then again, maybe not abandoned because you had the mortuary right there. But all of these zombies were fairly fresh bodies, except for the one that popped up. Yeah, but they were speaking and they were running. So it's not like The Walking Dead where all the zombies hobble along and they're falling apart. But yeah, these were very aggressive and smart zombies. This is a bad situation.
Yeah. I do love the fact that we do get a mix of like the two teams then. So basically the one group in the cemetery realizes, oh, we've got to go somewhere else. So let's go back to so some go to the warehouse. Yep, which is good. And then we've obviously got the other group where the boss comes and is dealing with because he basically at the mortuary because they're dealing with it, which is kind of neat because then you do get that type of piece. And then that's where we're really introduced to Tarhead. Holy cow.
In the warehouse.
Tarhead is, in the warehouse. Because that's where the girl says she's going to find Freddy. So she's the first one to basically really meet Tarhead.
Right.
And when she does, Tarhead is like creepy and weird. He's like brains.
All he does is say brains, and he's got the big eyeball. He bites the head punk, the guy who owns the car, bites him in his head and kills him.
Yep.
And it was disgusting. It was gross. I'm like, he's going for it. Like, I'm going to actually bite through your skull, which I'm like,
right.
That's not comforting.
Yeah,
because I thought, well, maybe my skull will be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we do have the groups going back and forth. Obviously, trash has already been lost. But then there's the preppy guy and the one girl who he likes her, she doesn't like him, but they're stuck together. And eventually we kind of find our way back to the warehouse. But for the group that's caught in the mortuary, so it's our two workers. So it's James Cameron's character and then Freddy are starting to succumb to the gas. So they are dying. But stupid Tina is like, they locked the two, dying guys in the chapel, and she's like, I'm staying with him and whatever. And then when he finally turns, he's not only interested in eating brains, because we do get a fully fleshed out, no pun intended, explanation of why zombies want to eat brains by the very life force looking half of a woman who's got great boobs, who explains it to our characters.
Is that what you noticed, Charlie? Really? I'm like, I was not. I don't know. That's Charlie's thing, but but Ernie, he decides he's gonna like. Why are you keeping her? Well, I want to learn more about it. So basically, she tells them exactly why they, they strap her down, why they keep her, because basically she says, I'm in pain. That's why these zombies are going, because eating brains apparently
it's
reduces the pain.
It's like a cigarette. If you ever talk to anybody who smokes, they're like, I need that little oomph. So that's what it is.
It's the little death. Yeah, the little death. Yep. So, so then something we forgot to talk about earlier was the fact that we're introduced to this colonel who has a specific terminal at his house. His wife's mad at him, even though
the 1-800 number.
Yes. Apparently she made pork chops for him, but apparently that's his favorite meal, but he got them at the office. So he's upset with her. And she's like, well, why do you have to have this terminal at our house? He goes, why, Hill. And we've talked about this before. So obviously there's some social drama there, but we don't know. And then we did find out earlier that the drum had a number.
1-800 number on it, right?
Has anybody tried calling that number yet? Where basically if something happened,
somebody must
call that number.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to call that number yet because apparently it will ruin the reputation of the medical equipment warehouse.
It's going to hurt the guy's business. The thing is, it would be so easy now because you would just text him. It'd be no big deal. It'd just be like,
Google the number first.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Your messaging data rates may be affected. So everything is kind of converging. So it's funny you should mention the drums because our characters get back. So Freddy comes back to life as a zombie. So does James Cameron, but James Cameron runs off because the door to
that
the
was
chapel
unique.
is broken open.
I did not expect that to happen.
He was like, he's like, I don't want to be a zombie. So he activates the furnace. He takes off his wedding ring, sets it off to the side, and puts himself in the furnace, which really doesn't help anything because then there's just going to be more zombie smoke. Yeah, and it's just going to make the problem worse. So, Freddy has come back to life. Now he's trying to eat his girlfriend. girlfriend. So Ernie and the girlfriend barricade themselves above the morgue in the attic. But Freddy is not only trying to eat her brains, but he's very passive aggressive and manipulative. I don't like that
if you
about his
loved me,
character.
let me eat your brains.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't like it. It's a girl, you can do better. It's a very toxic relationship, pun intended. So we're kind of, all the plot lines are converging. Now the warehouse guy and a couple of the people, I think the preppy guy, the other two not yet zombie characters, and Spider, who's Miguel Nunez, they're back at the warehouse. They're in the basement because that's where the working telephone is. By this point, they've killed off the Tar guy? Tarman. And they're like, all right, fine, we'll call the 1-800 number. And so they do, and it's the middle of the night where the Colonel lives because he lives in California and our people are in Louisville, Kentucky. And so you hear the other end of this conversation because it's being relayed just for the Colonel. He's like, yeah, oh, that's not good. Oh, why did you do that? Yeah. Well, you should have done that. Da-da-da-da-da. And so he's like, well, you just stay still and I'll get back to you with more instructions. And he gets on the line to an enlisted man who's at a howitzer about 150 miles away from Louisville. And this guy is psyched. He's like,
is that
yes,
Fort
sir.
Bragg?
Yeah,
is that probably.
Yeah, it would be about 150 miles away from Louisville. Yeah. He's like, yes, sir, Colonel. Absolutely. I'm very excited. He's typing some numbers on his keypad. Yes, sir, Colonel. I get to it right away. And he pushes a button as all of the chaos is happening.
Well, we shouldn't get to the ending yet. Because
what is the ending? What does this mean? No, but
because I was going to mention the fact that because that's like the ending, Charlie. It's like that's where crap's it's been. But the fact is, we've got like these zombies that keep calling in like more cops, more paramedics,
talking into the CB, you're talking into the police,
which is just crazy. The fact that they can just call them in. They're deceptive. Like they have the one cop guy, like the zombie dressed as a cop, who's like bringing in more cops, and they're eating them up. Then they end up. The SWAT helicopter can see them. Right. And we're like, oh, crap, this is going on. They call the cops. What's going on? They try to control it.
It ends up being a showdown because they barricade things in front of the entrance to the cemetery that obviously backs out onto the medical warehouse. And, they've got all the cops out there with the weapons and they're like, stop where you are. And then there's just a horde of these zombies coming forward. And then we see Trash again for the last time. And
she's crazy.
But still, as God made her, before she died, and and it's just they're all are the cops and the first responders. The guns aren't effective, and then that's when I think we circle back to obviously the phone call and the Colonel. Yeah.
So Jose, what's the solution to all of this?
Well, like, do you want me to tell you the ending or what I think this?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Why don't you do both? 1-2 punch.
Do both, yeah, absolutely.
The truth is, I didn't know. I was like, well, if you can't cut their heads off, that's a problem. And if the other option would be burning, which clearly doesn't work, I was like, this is just bad news. Like, it's clearly building this in hindsight, like thinking about Russo. Like, he clearly was building, like, I want to build a universe out of this. So it's got a
cinematic universe,
something bigger. Yeah. What they do in the film, though, is that they call the Colonel. He talks to someone on his end. He calls the guy in the howitzer, who, by the way, was reading a comic. I don't know if you saw that. He was like on his.
Oh no!
Do we know what? Do we know what he was reading?
I couldn't tell from the scene, but if you go back and watch it for a second, it's on Prime, by the way, Prime Video. If you want to, watch it.
Yeah. I do always like to say where you can watch it. Prime is one. I think either Tubi or Roku channel was the other one. So yeah.
But you know what? You're not doing that. You're going by the 4K. A UHD player version of this for $85.
Yeah. See,
that's what you're doing.
Linnea Quigley and all her trashy glory.
Exactly. Yes. So he calls in, and sure enough, you just hear him count down, and they launch like giant shell with like a radioactive symbol on it, and they basically show like that scene from Terminator 2 with like the big mushroom cloud, and then after
you see it from huge, you see it from a distance, and then you see the nuclear wind tear apart all the houses. So they annihilate the entire area, and they said, well, it was the kill rate was effective, 4,000 people dead, which obviously isn't the whole town, but
maybe it was. I don't know. Is that a big town? I mean, we don't know.
Maybe it was only for. I think
Was it Louisville? I don't know. Did they actually say we're in Louisville?
Yeah, they absolutely did.
Okay.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Well, that's how they knew where to blow up. They couldn't just guess. Well, I think it might be over here. But this is where it got weird for me. So that happens, and then it feels like there's the voiceover I was talking about. Like, yes, sir, it was a pretty effective hit. We took out 4,000 people, and then they just start playing a montage of everything that happened in the film over as the credits. That just seemed like
we had the smoke go up from the explosion, and then we see like more rain going to other places, and that's where we have the one guy pop up. So obviously, we know not successful, and we're essentially just creating more.
You're just
chaos.
Yes, exactly. So, but then they just play. You get a montage of everything that happened. So obviously, it moved on. And I mean, if it was Louisville, Kentucky, isn't Cincinnati across the river for there? Or am I thinking of Lexington, Kentucky? I don't know. There's obviously another town nearby, and then that was the 8 sequels.
Does IMDb tell us like where they like set? Let's see, Louisville, Kentucky warehouse. Yeah, so that's exactly right. So IMDb knows all, or Wikipedia knows all. And, so, and the fact that we know this led to like 5 more movies.
Well, like you said, on a budget of $4 million, pulling in what I assume is global box office of 14. That's not bad, particularly if you consider that if it was a $4 million budget and if you doubled it for marketing, which probably wasn't even that much, they made a lot of money. So that you would see how that would encourage them to keep it going.
Oh yeah, and I love the fact that this has the soundtrack, which is kind of crazy because you did a soundtrack. So we had "Surfing Dead" by the Cramps, "Party Time Zombie Version" by 45 Grave, "Nothing for You" by TSOL, "Eyes Without a Face" by the Flesh Eaters, "Burn the Flames" by Rory Erickson, "Deadbeat Dance" by the Damned, "Take a Walk" by Tall Boys, "Love Under Will" by Jet Blackberries, "Tonight We Will Make Love Until We Die" by SSQ, "Trash's Theme" by SSQ, Young Fast Iranians by the FUs, "Party Time" by 45 Grave, and "Panzer Rollin' in Africa" by Norbert Schulze.
I'll bet you can get the soundtrack on my Amazon Prime Music Unlimited, because Amazon to Amazon, right? I'll have to look. But I will note what you just read off. Some of it is featured on the movie poster. It's on the stone below. Where the zombies reaching out the ground. Yes, absolutely. So, all right. So, final thoughts before we wrap it up.
Jose.
The only thing that I will note, and this is, I was doing a little bit of research but I thought this was notable. You guys talked a lot about how Night of the Living Dead was before this. This was the precursor. It occurred in the same universe of this.
Right.
What's really cool about that story too is that Russo, who was one of the writers of Night of the Living Dead, with George Romero, they wrote that movie together. Afterwards, they wanted to do a sequel and they disagreed. And so Romero changed he wrote his own script. It became Dawn of the Dead, 1978. Russo wrote this. So what's kind of cool is like if you're a big fan of like the zombie lore,
totally.
Dawn of the Dead was that original story. And then this was one of the branches that was created by the other writer to go out.
Oh, wow.
And obviously he wrote 6 or 7 others that maybe not have done as well commercially. I mean, maybe they did, who I don't know for sure, but it's just cool that they had a big vision for this that has lived out. And I mean, zombies are still a part of mainstream culture today. With
if you look at the Walking Dead, which still goes on. I mean, we've got one of them to watch. The current series that's on right now, we've got an episode of that to watch when I get done here. So,
Last of Us. Apparently, it's that's 4 people, but it's essentially zombies again. And
exactly, exactly. So, all right. So, this is like the 4th. What was the first? This is like the 4th silly movie we've watched in Shocktober. So, Todd, I would say because we're almost to the end, and I didn't watch the movie last week. Is this the silliest movie we've watched so far?
I think this is the one that knows it's silly and has fun with it and embraces for what it is. Because even when they were filming this film, you saw like certain parts like. The actors seem like they're just not fully like scripted on where they need to go, because I saw one actor like he almost slipped and fell and he kept on just going. So I'm like, they knew what they were doing. This is the silly one. They embrace it.
I agree.
I mean, it's just great. I love it. Over the top. It is quite fun. And I will say this, I did see this as a kid, like parts of it, and I was scared. I didn't know what to think. So I'm like, I didn't turn it off. So I never watched the full thing. So now this brings back full circle. But Tarman,
just like all 3
is
of
horrific.
We've seen bits and pieces. Yeah. Okay, so before we do ratings, Jose,
Charlie, did you get the trioxin, or are you okay? We're worried about you might turn into a zombie.
Brains.
Okay.
I'm gonna need my microphone. Yeah. Harumph. All right, Jose. Final thoughts. I'll give some thoughts, and then we'll do a rating. So by all means.
I mean, I enjoy the movie. Is it my favorite zombie movie? No, there are other ones that I enjoy quite a bit more, but I think it is a classic one. It's one that a lot of people know, even if they're not like horror fans. And again, like it's something where if you're having a Halloween party or if you just want something on while you're like working in October,
that's where I saw
this
it.
This is a great film to have on for sure.
Most def. And yeah, I kind of echo what Todd was saying. It's silly for silly's sake. When you're making it for $3 million, they still produce some memorable gore and nudity for the $3 million. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, as opposed to the kind of the thriller suspense of The Fog, which we watched it 2 weeks ago. The Drag Me to Hell was the first one, which I didn't care for, and then whatever was going on last week. So this was the silly one. This was the fun one for me. Todd, you were going to say?
Oh, I just think this is the movie that, if you want your kids to get an education, turn it on because, it's got everything.
It
horror, nudity, punks.
Medical
kids
science,
need to know about the punks of the 80s.
Yes. Punks that want to party and they say man a lot and they have spiky hair. All right. Well, let's go around the horn and we'll give it let's see here. On a scale of 1 to 10, zombie eyeballs. There we go. Jose, you start. 1 to 10 zombie eyeballs.
I would give this probably 6 zombie eyeballs. It's not one that I feel like I would have to show people, but again, if they're into horror and zombies, it's definitely a fun time. Definitely not a bad movie. So I'd go 6.
Gotcha. Todd, yours, and you have to keep it a whole number because you can't have half an eyeball. That just doesn't work. Whole numbers only. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to go 7. 7 zombie eyeballs. I enjoyed this movie all throughout. Just the hijinks, the clever kills, the oddness of it, and the punks.
Yeah.
I just love the punks. They feel like they're such Jose, you played enough video games. When you get punks in them, they're great. Charlie, we grew up with
it's great.
Exactly. That'd be the punks. They've got mohawks and switchblades and bad leather jackets.
Yeah, exactly. Spikes and whips and chains. I will go because I enjoyed the hell out of this for what it was. This was also probably a 7 for me. So just rocking good time. Turn your brain off. But again, you learn from it, like Todd said, learn about boobs and zombie gas and crematorium and just all that passive aggressive toxic relationships with recently dead boyfriends.
A career in the military. You got a howitzer. If you're a colonel, apparently you can have a seaside house in San Diego, but only if your wife is an heiress, which apparently, but don't be nice to her because I thought he was very rude. That's and you know what? If she makes pork chops for you, you don't say anything, you eat the pork chops.
What's that though? Pork chop sandwiches. I don't know. It was a G.I. Joe thing. I don't know. I have no idea. All right. Well, that winds us down. We have 1 week of Shocktober left, where we are watching a new film. And that is Todd, isn't that the
Late Night with the Devil
with
David Dalmatian? It's on Shudder, Jose. So watch it there. Yes, free to stream.
It's great.
Very good. I'm very excited.
Oh, you've seen it? Great.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Very good. Well, I look forward to it. That seems like it'll be more of a serious horror film. So that'll be our first serious one. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Jose, awesome having you here. Love working with you. Look forward to having you back in the future. Where do people find you out there?
You can find me on X Chipotle_Bear or every Thursday night record with 3 of my best friends. We do the Nerd Chat over on YouTube where we talk about all things gaming, food, and the good old days. Just want to say thank you both to you guys. Love talking about horror movies and all things October. Obviously just a fun time talking with horror buffs and honestly good people, man. Like that's one of my favorite parts about being part of the podcast community is they're just good people out there that want to talk about great things. So thank you guys for having me very much and hope you guys enjoy the rest of Shocktober, man.
Our pleasure all the way. Mr. Oxford, where do people find you out there, please?
Yeah, just a big shout out to Jose. They do it live on YouTube, which is amazing. So you can go listen along. You can put your shout out for your favorite food of the week. And they just have a blast. They do a great job over there and glad we've gotten to podcast. I think it's everybody and just a
big precursor, we are going to have Chance on to talk about fantasy football
Nice.
on Waiver Wire Wizard. So we're bringing it all in. All of the hosts have been on a Secret Friends Unite show. So it's been great partnering with that team with all the great people. So thank you again, Jose. But for me, you can follow me on Threads at Toxtra at Secret Friends Unite. Check out our Discord, check out our Patreon, and check out our YouTube. But before you do that, rate us on Apple Podcasts, rate us on Spotify, rate us on any other service that we have. 5 out of 5, please.
5050. Well, I'm in a lot of those same spots. So, that zombie, it's getting to me.
Charlie, are you dying?
The zombies.
Charlie, it's make a wish for Charlie. Give him, he would love it if you give him a 5 out of 5 on his make a wish.
My dying wish. But I am also over on the Threads. I'm at the C3, TheCeeThree. I'm also that on Instagram. But I spend my time kicking it over on the Discord for Secret Friends Unite, and also a little Discord we have called the United Trekkers of Michigan, which is just a fun place to talk about Star Trek here in our great mitten state of Michigan and beyond. And with that, friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Brains.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.